I can help anyone land a job if they know which job that is. Too many people will just say, I'm just going to keep my options open. I could work in marketing. I could work in product management. I could work in sales. And I'm going to keep this option open because that is going to give me the most opportunity. That is so far from the truth.
2023. How did that happen? Happy New Year, my friend. I'm so glad to be back at the HIListically Speaking mic. As you might have gathered, I took a little break, a little self-care journey for myself and also to take care of some family. So I am so glad to be here again. I guess you can say I was doing a little adulting, right? It's hard being a grown-up sometimes. And isn't that just where you find yourself in January? You know, going through all the changes and the planning of what's coming up and what's going to happen, making those resolutions of what you want in your life in the year ahead, be it personal or professional. But I got a little secret for you. I kind of hate the word resolution. It feels more like an obligation. And if you fail, you feel even worse about yourself. So we're putting the kibosh on that. We're nipping it in the bud. We're using a different word here. I prefer the word revelation. Revelations are more empowering, they're more motivating because they are a realization and an understanding of something you truly desire for yourself, something you want in your life. So we're going to go that route instead, okay? And it could be like a new career or a new job. In fact, that's where we're going today. There are so many shifts that have been happening in this area, in the job market, in the career market. And if this is you, if you're considering that pivot yourself, I have a question for you that I want you to take into consideration. Are you a job seeker or are you a job shopper? Because there is a big difference, especially post-pandemic. You know, when words like quiet quitting and burnout are just so common and we're using them in everyday conversation. But that's the key word right there. Conversation and, of course, connection. What are you doing to find that fit? And do you even know what that fit is, right? 60% of jobs are found through networking. And I don't mean hanging out at the water cooler or going to happy hours. I mean having a true conversation and a resume or a portfolio that is going to match your energy to not only get you in the door, but let you decide if you want to take the job. Now that's empowering. And if anyone gets it, it is Madeline Mann. She's an HR and recruiting leader that is more like your fairy job mother, right? And her magic fairy dust is not just how many resumes you're sending out over and over, but rather it's putting you in control so that the jobs come to you. How does that sound? Madeline is here to share a bunch of tips that will change the way you job shop, plus how you may be overlooking some of the most important online resources that could be the make or the break on becoming self-made. And a bonus offer from both Madeline and myself to make 2023 the year that puts you in the driver's seat, including a chance to join me live to build confidence, stay calm, and kick that inner bully to the curb once and for all in the new year. And a Hug It Out challenge that I'm doing, 14 days coming up, a free challenge to turn those revelations into a reality. You need this. I need this. So let's start making some magic. The Self-Made Millennial. I love that. I have to tell you, Madeline, I love that title, and you are rocking it in the world of job searching and recruiting. Madeline Mann joining me here on HIListically Speaking. It's such a pleasure to have you. Thanks for being here.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right. The first question I want to ask you that I ask so many people, my clients, my friends, my family first, is what is new and good for Madeline Mann?
So I have been, just this whole year has been really focused on helping people to know that there's many things happening in the job market right now. We went from having where it was really the candidates market to suddenly so many layoffs and all these different things. And so my mission this year has just been focused on making sure that people have their exit strategy. They have their plan, they have their next step, and they have their confidence in themselves so that they're in the driver's seat. They're job shopping versus feeling like they are at the whim of these employers.
Yeah. So you love what you do, clearly. I mean, I can see that there's a lot of passion behind doing the HR and the recruiting. And this isn't my normal kind of guest for the podcast, but I feel like in this day and age, I see so many clients, and I do a lot of workshops in this area where there's the burnout, there is the overwhelm. We're hearing words like quiet quitting. And, we live in a society where I think we've gotten into this mindset of live to work rather than work to live. And you being a millennial, it's a completely different ball game than it was 20, 30, 40 years ago. So for you, how do you hold space for others to make sure that they're not just looking for the job that is available, but looking for the job that aligns with who they are?
Absolutely. When I talk about the idea of a dream job, there are things that it is and things that it isn't. I don't believe that if you have the best job in the world, you never work a day in your life. Work is work. We do work for money, but that doesn't mean that your work can't light you up, that it can't give you energy, that it can't be a place where you are surrounded by people who you are really respect and enjoy. And my goal is that everyone should sit around the dinner table at night and be energized and talking about their day at work versus drained and saying, oh, my boss did this, that. Like, we spend way too much time at work to be passive about the way that we are making sure that we are targeting these next roles. And the thing is that if any of your listeners are listening right now and just thinking like, I don't have that dream job right now, one of the hardest things you do in your career is figuring out what that is. So if anyone's finding that to be challenging of what exactly is the right next step for me, that's actually extremely normal. But that is the hard work you need to do in order to be happy in it. And it bleeds into every other part of your life. Your personal relationships, your health, your emotional state, all of those things, your finances.
How is this something that you fell into, basically?
I did the hard work of figuring out what I wanted to do with my life. All my whole life, I always had to work extremely hard in school to do well. And I did do well, but it was never without effort, except for when it came to anything that had to do with psychology. Human behavior, it was finally something that was easy for me. It's finally something that I just intuitively understood at every turn. And so I thought, what does someone who's extremely good at psychology, what do they do with their career? Of course, everyone told me to be a therapist or a researcher, which doesn't really play to my values. I'm someone who likes teamwork. I like to, level up. I like to get promotions. I like to, and that doesn't really fit with those career paths. And so I just did so much informational interviewing and talking to people, and I finally landed on HR. And through all that soul searching before I job search, I then landed these roles in HR, and it was exactly what I was hoping for. And because I was so energized by my work, I was the head of HR at a tech company, and I was seeing that a lot of job seekers were making the same mistakes over and over again. If they had only changed their approach, they would be landing so many more job offers. And so I thought, why don't I put this content out into the world? Because I looked at the content that was out there at that time, and it was either really misguided, kind of old school advice, or it was just really dry. And so I put the content out there, and it's just been this absolute snowball over the past few years of just millions and millions of people tuning in, hundreds of thousands of success stories. And it's just been just this incredible rocket ship.
The job seeker to the job shopper. What's the difference, really? What's the real difference between seeker and shopper?
It's a transformation. So for a lot of seekers, it's putting out a lot of applications, hoping the company will get back to us, hoping they give us an offer. Job shoppers know their value. They know what they bring to the table, and they're actually attracting companies, and companies are selling them on opportunities. And it's not because these people have Ivy League degrees. It's not because they go, work at the brand name companies. They're not actually that different than any one person. They might even be a career changer who has been a stay-at-home mom for 5 years and is now going into a completely new field. You can be a job shopper no matter what. It really is about understanding your job search strategy. And so many of my clients who've transitioned to job shoppers, they're not even applying to any jobs. All of the opportunities are coming inbound, or they're building these very meaningful relationships that are helping them to land interviews, at 7 out of the 10 companies they're interested in. And so that is the mindset shift, is knowing that you're not beholden to these companies. You have the value and they should be competing for you.
And I think that's a really big distinction. And I'm really glad you mentioned that, because working in mental health, it's really about your building the self-worth, building the empowerment within yourself, not feeling like you're doing, I think it's you really being like, I'm doing you a favor without the conceitedness, but more of the confidence, right? And walking into an interview, walking into an interview or having a conversation with a potential employer saying, you don't need to look any further. Here I am.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
And I think that's where a lot of people tend to look at things a little differently, is that they walk in, they're going, I hope they like me. I hope they. And it's like, dude, lady, all of you out there, I wouldn't call them dude. I don't know why that came out, but basically saying, no, it's about you saying, I'm good for this. This is perfect. I got it. This aligns with who I am, right? And we're doing each other a favor, right? So
yes.
that's a big distinction, is building your self-confidence, self-worth, and knowing that what you want is coming back to you, Yeah.
Right. And I see so many people who have maybe that lower self-confidence. They'll say, well, I'm going to shoot for roles that are lower than what I'm qualified for, because I think those will be easier. And I'm switching industries, so I should probably start from the bottom. And they're not landing interviews, and they're wondering why. Well, this is not like applying to college where you have a safety school and a reach school. No. Companies want candidates who know their worth, and they're not going to put you in a role where they think that you are overqualified, because they're afraid that you're going to get bored and leave, and that's not good for anyone. Like they want you to hold your standard pretty high, and they want to buy into that standard of like, okay, like you believe, you can achieve this. Let's stretch you to do that. That's really exciting for a business, because that means that they can more likely retain you if they're putting you in a stretch role versus putting you in something that is below your competency.
Yeah. And if that's an area that you struggle with, that those of you listening, there are folks like myself, like coaches like myself, like Madeline, who can really support you on that journey and help you realize, what is it? Why are you stuck? Like, this is what I deal with a lot with my clients, is what's stopping you? Why are you stuck in that I'm not good enough, or you're giving so much of your control away to somebody you don't even know, maybe a company you might not even want to work with. But when you walk in with that confidence, it can really change the trajectory of everything, and anything. So having that ability to really see who you are and I think it's the confidence more than anything, and knowing what you want, being truly clear on your intention. So can we talk about that intention?
Yes, you're spot on. I can help anyone land a job if they know which job that is. Too many people will just say, I'm just going to keep my options open. I could work in marketing. I could work in product management. I could work in sales. And I'm going to keep those options open because that is going to give me the most opportunity. That is so far from the truth. If you are not able to clearly brand yourself and know exactly what you're going for, you are not going to get what you want in the end. Companies aren't going to want to hire you because, again, you're a flight risk, your branding is confusing. And so it really, I have this process called the 1-page career vision, which is this like 8-step process of really getting to know, first of all, yourself. What are your strengths? What are your values? Really uncovering that. It's hard work, but it's important work. And then moving into, okay, what roles would be perfect for that? What industries play to all those things? And one of the things that I never talk about is, well, let's take a look at your hobbies. Oh, what do you really like? No, it's not about your hobbies. It's about where you can build mastery and which industries actually play to your strengths. Such as I had a client who he joined my coaching program, and he was interested in the video game industry, which I've worked in. It is a really fun industry, but he chose it because he loved video games. And then as he started to look at his strengths and his values, and he wanted to be a software engineer in the video game industry, he realized, oh wait, this doesn't play to my values. And he ended up switching to going to the artificial intelligence industry and being a project manager. And so I think that sometimes we get confused with hobbies versus an actual genuine understanding of, when I get into this role, like, are they going to value me the right way? Are the hours the way I want them to be? Is the team dynamics, is that what's playing to me? And different seasons of your life, you're going to have different values, depending on what you want to do. Some of us are like in that moment of our career where we want to grind and we want to achieve as fast as possible. That's a certain type of culture. There's other times where we want really great balance and flexibility. That's another type. Whatever is your season, that's perfect, but you need to be focused on that more than, I love fashion or I love sports. Like, focus more on the core.
Yeah, being laser focused, I think, is a big thing. And there's a quote I use a lot just for my own life, because I think we've all been through these transitions. We're trying, who are we? Where do we want to go? How do we want to show up in the world? Who do we want to show up for? But let your passion be your purpose, and one day it'll be your profession. So you need to have the passion. You need to have the purpose. What is your intent? What do you want to leave? What are you good at that you enjoy doing, that you can make money doing it? And here's another thing that I want to talk about. I'm reading this book, or rereading rather, the book, You Are a Badass at Making Money. I love Jen Sincero. She's got that whole Badass series. And there's a book about making money, as there are many out there, but the way she shares it is it's funny. And we look at money a lot of times like it's dirty, it's greedy. And the thing is, here's the takeaway. The more money you make, the more you can serve others. The more you can have time for yourself so you can serve others well. It's not dirty and greedy if the intention is authentic and honest, right? So why not make more so that you can give yourself back more time, so that you can do more for others and do more for yourself, right? So that was a big takeaway for me, that you really need to know what your intent is. You need to know your passion and purpose. And you also want to be clear that why you want to work, not just to pay bills, but because you enjoy what you do. But making money is not a bad thing.
I think exactly. And I think a lot of people think that you can't have both. Like, I want to do good in the world, so I have to take a job that is at this low-paying nonprofit, right? Versus being a little bit more creative in what your career options are. That's something I really focus on with my clients. Is a lot of people go to what I call TV careers, which are basically the 12 careers that basically every character on television has, like doctor, lawyer, journalist, like whatever it is, and teacher. And we forget that there's a lot of these, speech language pathologists, or like things like that, where you're like, I don't know what that role is, but maybe that could be extremely fulfilling and rewarding and have, expanding job opportunities versus contracting. And that is something that I think I really encourage people to investigate more and to do that research. There is research online that will show you how much you'll make over the course of your career. Are the number of roles increasing over time, or are they decreasing? That's a huge thing I focus on, because exactly, it is to make money. And if you have no margin, you have no mission. You need to make sure you're filling up your cup, getting financially secure in whatever way you can live your own lifestyle.
I love that. No margin, no mission. That's great.
Yeah.
What's the importance of, obviously you should be researching. You should be looking into the kind of jobs that you want and hiring somebody like
Madeline, like hiring you is a great way to hand the reins over to somebody who that's your specialty, right? You don't need to go at this alone, right? But it is up to you. It's up to each and every one of us to really do some of our own research, which goes back to the intent. So that leads me to the question of how important and how valuable are things like Glassdoor, Indeed, checking the ratings, what people say about jobs, the money that they make, because it's an opinion, right? Like it's like reading a movie review. But how do you find that to be helpful?
I think that those resources are absolutely valuable in some ways. So for something like Glassdoor, where people review companies that they work for, me working in human resources, I know very well that typically the people who write those reviews are the people who are the least satisfied because they have something to say. The people who are satisfied don't really think about, I need to write a review right now, unless, there's some sort of incentive program or they're reminded or whatnot. So it's not always the perfect reflection of a business, but that doesn't mean it's not a data point you should check and reference and understand. I do think online research is important, but what I've found is I've personally never taken a job where I haven't first spoken to former employees at that company. Smart. And that is something that, you can obviously ask really great questions in the interview, but you will get no better insight than a former employee because they have nothing to lose, nothing to gain by selling you on the position. And so I think that sometimes you've got to take paths that are a little bit less paved, which is really what that's basically like the cornerstone of my coaching is there's a lot of loopholes in the job search and a lot of different strategies. I call it job search parkour, where you get into the building no matter, in all different pathways. And and talking to former employees is just one of the many ways that you can kind of get this insider knowledge that will help you to make a sure-footed next move.
So with that being said, and look, when you mention former employees, that doesn't necessarily mean that the employees didn't have a good experience. Maybe they moved on to a better experience. That's that maybe they're like, this was a great start for me. Definitely.
Absolutely.
What about I touch on that one a little bit, if you will. Like going to former employees.
Joined companies. Yeah. Exactly. And they'll tell you the truth. And like my most recent, I now work for myself, but before I spoke to 3 different employees. All 3, of course, gave nuanced feedback, but all of the reviews came back glowing. Just because someone leaves a company doesn't mean they didn't like that company. It's just a different season.
I think that's what a lot of people necessarily, they'll think first that, oh, you left? It's almost like a breakup. Oh, you guys aren't together anymore? It must have been a bad breakup. It's like, no, maybe you come to an agreement like, hey, this was a great opportunity, but I got to move on, Right.
Yeah.
So with that being said, let's talk about resumes. We've gotten to this world of everything being digital. We live in a digital world. Resumes have changed dramatically. Business cards have changed dramatically. Now we're seeing like V cards over, ones you usually wind up putting in the fishbowl for a free lunch at restaurants, right? But what is the power of the resume? Like, how powerful is that resume?
It truly does wield a big power in that not only is I view it as a sales document. Too many people view it as a Wikipedia page. It is not a Wikipedia page. I do not need to know everything you've ever done. I need to know only what you've done that is relevant to the role we are talking about. So it's a sales page, not a Wikipedia page. So it kind of gives you that flashbulb moment of like, okay, here's how I understand this person. That also helps to open doors. I'm really not, I tell people to not measure their job search by applications, but instead interactions. So I don't ever think that blasting out your resume is a good strategy. But if your resume is actually read by someone, it can be really powerful. What people think, though, is that the resume is to land the interview, and it does not stop there. When I have clients who they work with me and they're actually getting a good amount of interviews already, but they're just not closing on the offers. But even we still redo their resume and they realize that the quality of the conversations in the interviews elevates because you're directing them to talk about certain things. You're directing them to have a certain impression of you. And before you step into an interview, your resume is already making an impression every single time. So it needs to be on lock.
It's almost like an agenda then. Somebody's looking over your resume and it sparks conversation.
Yes.
Right? And if you're excited about what you have on that resume, you're going to have a really great conversation if you're asked those questions. That's a great way to look at it. I never thought about it like that. And on that point, I just want to mention to listeners that Madeline is graciously giving away her resume revamp masterclass. You can write the resume that gets picked over everyone else in her free class. I'm going to have a link to that on the in the listen notes on the podcast page. So definitely grab that webinar. It's an opportunity to just be in the room basically with Madeline and get some really great tips on whether you're looking to bump up your resume or you're looking to just learn some new quality things that could help you get to that next step, which here's something I really want to talk about. By the way, thank you for that. LinkedIn. How important is LinkedIn? Because not everyone is on LinkedIn. Or if they are, they're not doing much on it.
Yes. My clients, their minds explode when they realize how much they've been underutilizing LinkedIn. It is so important. I mean, in some ways, you could argue that a LinkedIn profile is more important than a resume, in that not only are people constantly checking it, but as I mentioned earlier, I had a client named Liz who she got her resume professionally done by a resume writer, and she applied to 15 places, got 0 interviews. And this is someone, she's qualified. Like, she was going for a role that was very much in line with what she had done in the past. And then she goes to her resume writer and says, "Hey, I didn't land any interviews. What's going on?" The resume writer goes, "Oh, you only applied to 15 places? Apply to 15 more and get back to me." And I'm a very much like low volume job search. Like, you do not need to apply to that many places. And so she joined my coaching program, and I was like, let's zest up your LinkedIn. Let's zest up your LinkedIn strategy. And so we really kind of redid her online presence. And within days, she started landing interviews. And do you know how the number of jobs she has applied for since then? 0. She completely was able. Exactly. She immediately got 7 interviews. I think she landed about 3 different offers and was able to then basically choose a role that was, I think she was a manager level before, then she went to a director level for the new job. And so imagine if your job search, that's what job shopping's all about, is you're not like constantly putting out all this energy into the world. The world is saying, "Liz, you're fantastic. Please interview with us." And she's like, "Okay, well, show me what you've got and we can talk about it. I have 2 other offers. Are you going to be the third?" That is the difference. And LinkedIn can make that happen.
Oh, so can you give a couple tips on how to zhuzh up your LinkedIn for anybody out there that might be like on the job search? What are some tips?
Yes. So what's so important about the LinkedIn profile is it's really about the value you add to the world. I see too many people will make their LinkedIn profile about what they want. I don't know if you've ever seen a LinkedIn headline that says, "Open to new opportunities," which it's like if you just saw a sign for a store that said like, "Welcoming new customers." It's like, okay, but what do I buy at your store? What do I actually get from this? And so it's such a weird, approach. What you really need to do is you need to focus on, okay, what value to add to the world? And also, LinkedIn is a search engine. So many people forget about this. Of course, if you're a consultant or a business owner, a headline on your LinkedIn profile, which is kind of like the message at the top below your name, it could be something about what I help business owners to scale to 7 and 8 figures, whatever it is, that's fine. But if you are a job seeker, there are people on LinkedIn called recruiters or called sourcers who are searching for your skill set. And what so many job seekers don't do is they don't do the hard work of understanding exactly what those recruiters are searching for and then matching their profile to that. And so that is something I'm really focused on, is really optimizing those things, making sure. And I also have on the front of my page, my website, on madelinemann.com, there's a LinkedIn profile checklist as well. If any of your listeners want to just completely revamp their profile.
We'll add that. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so that can be a big help.
That's great. We'll definitely put that in the notes on the podcast page, because anytime, and look, I'm a college professor. I have a lot of kids out there that are looking for jobs, but and even in the age I'm at in my midlife, there are people that are making that shift. Maybe they want to do something different. Maybe it's not necessarily entrepreneurial. Maybe they actually do want to work in a different line of work, and that's okay too. Like there's no right or wrong. It's what's right for you, basically. So the LinkedIn thing, I think you're right. A lot of people haven't really tapped into it. I was one of them. Look, and I'm not job seeking, but it helps to find clients too, to be able to fine tune it. So when people know who you are, they come to you like, oh, she does that. Oh, that's an area where she's really skilled in, or she enjoys. You can tell just by the content you put out there. That's the other thing. How active are you on LinkedIn? The engagement level that I learned about from friends who are very good on LinkedIn, that made all the difference for me, is engagement. And I think on every platform, right?
Yes. Yeah. I think LinkedIn is kind of seen as like the ugly stepchild of social media. Like everyone always like forgets about it. But I have built my business on LinkedIn. It has been one of the biggest drivers of people towards wanting what I do. And it's not just because I'm focused on job seekers, which that's, of course, I mean, LinkedIn, you think about job seekers all the time, but I have actually helped at least 3 different people become LinkedIn top voices for areas that are not job seeking. Because I do have like a free class that I have that people can see how I built my LinkedIn presence, because it's the organic reach is way better than a lot of these other social platforms. You can reach people who are not just connected to you, but second, third, even fourth degree connections. So that has been really great. You can actually get visibility far beyond just your inner circle.
And you mentioned other social media platforms. Sometimes it's hard to look at LinkedIn like it's a social media platform because you think, oh, it's professional. But there is a lot of socialization. There is a lot of connection and communication. Not everything has to be suit and tie on that page, and I've noticed that there's a lot of humor. Because there has to be an enjoyment in what you do, right? There's a place for the professional in a more serious tone, but there's also a place for it to be a little more relaxed, which moves me to you on TikTok. You are second in your area of to Gary Vee, because you jumped on the TikTok bandwagon pretty early, you mentioned. So your TikTok and your YouTube have been award winning because of the content you put out there. And so you're using a social media platform to build your business, but also to offer advice to help people in their business. Elaborate on that.
Yeah, it's been incredible. So yeah, I hopped on TikTok when I think really the only other person I was seeing talking direct to camera was Gary Vaynerchuk. And it was really still during the dancing phase. And I knew I could not compete with these 16-year-olds when it came to learning dances. So I was like, I'm not going to try to compete with that. So I've never really done like a dancing and pointing to words on the screen. It's always been direct to camera. And that really connected with people, because if you do watch my YouTube channel, you'll know that the way I approach my YouTube videos was always very quick, is very like to the point, like let me give you some tips, let me make sure they're actionable, and let me make sure I'm not taking myself seriously. Like I'm a bit goofy in my YouTube videos. There's like, lots of puns, there's lots of sound effects. And so that translated really well to TikTok of like, hey, give us something bite-sized, don't take yourself seriously, and make it valuable. And so it's been a blast. I mean, we get dozens and dozens of comments on our videos every single day of people saying, this changed my life, I landed a job. We stopped counting after the hundreds of thousands of success stories. And so it's just been absolutely remarkable.
Amazing. What about YouTube? How's that been for you?
So YouTube was my first love, my first platform that I started with. And just a warning to anyone who wants to try YouTube, it's the hardest one, I would say. It's the most rewarding. Long term, I feel like that's my favorite platform. But it really is like to really gain traction on YouTube. It's dedication, and there's a lot of strategy to it as well. But that is also where I see the biggest success stories. And even if you just read any of my videos, like the success stories are popping off. And I think it's because people have more time to sit down and watch a 10-minute video and get that insight that they never got at any point in their career.
Yeah. And like knowing where to go for advice, being able to sit down and just tap into just a couple clear pointers can make all the difference in what is a job win or not a job win, right? I don't want to say a lose because that's a negative, but I think just taking away some pointers is a big thing. So you've utilized these really big platforms and created content. And it is, yeah, I get it. It's like, it's not always the dancing videos, which you jumped on it, you said probably like 2.5, 3 years ago on TikTok.
Yes. Yeah. I was on there in 2019.
Yeah. Like, right. I mean, the pandemic was a time when what else are you going to do? By the way, let's talk about that real quick. I'm curious about that. How did the pandemic impact your work as an HR and recruiter? Because everyone was at home. Either working at home, nobody's really job searching or seeking or shopping because where are you going to go? Right? So how did it impact you personally?
Yes, I was working in human resources at that time. It was really tough. I mean, to maintain morale, constantly. I just remember every 2 weeks, the executive team would be like, all right, so what's our plan for return to work? Like, how are we going to get back in the office? And it was, I probably made a dozen different return to work plans because they're like, okay, we're going to be back in July. Okay, we're going to be back in August. Okay, we're going to be back at the end of the year. And it was just like, y'all, this pandemic isn't going anywhere. Mm-hmm. So that was really tough. But as far as the job seekers go, there was so many people who lost their jobs at that moment. And there was so much lack of clarity of what the future of their employment looked like. And I was going live constantly talking about the job market, talking about what I was seeing, talking about how to still land jobs. And I don't know if it's because more people were on the job market because they had lost their jobs, but I had more success stories during that first phase of the pandemic than I had, all the months previous, because I saw what was happening. I was able to direct my clients to find those loopholes, to find those ways of getting into those businesses when they had paused hiring. Mm-hmm. I actually see that as a positive sometimes for my clients because I then have certain strategies to make sure that they're first in line when it opens up. So stuff like that, where it's like they're like, oh, wow, I'm actually seeing a lot of success. But you kind of have to know behind the scenes to make sure you're using it to your advantage.
Yeah, definitely. And now we're seeing that return. People are either deciding going back to work, maybe they want to change the business they're working in or the company they're working for, or maybe they are just making a complete pivot. We've heard that word a lot. But regardless of whatever you're doing, listeners, I would say definitely download the Resume Revamp Masterclass that Madeline is graciously offering. Standoutresume.com/webinar. We will put that in the notes, and check out our website. We're going to put all that again in the listen notes. But before we go, I want to play a little game with you. And I wrote down a number of words, and I'm just going to throw one word out to you. And this could be something that they do in HR. I don't know. I kind of remember them doing stuff like this, but I'm going to throw out one word to you, and I want you to come back with the first word that comes to mind. And these are words that I put down while we were talking. Okay? You ready?
Okay. Yes.
Thinking cap on. Seeker.
Job.
Shopper.
Opportunities.
Career.
Pivot.
Intention.
Dedication.
Resume.
Document.
Value.
Focus.
Passion.
Enjoyment.
This is 2 words, maybe hyphenated. Self-made.
Driven.
This is one we didn't talk about, but I'm going to throw it out there because I saw it on your LinkedIn. Tangerine.
Orange.
Yeah. Okay. So like I remember looking at your LinkedIn and loving the whole with the little oranges and stuff, but you have the tangerine tips, which is great. How did you come up with that?
Yeah, so my branding color has always been orange. It's my favorite color. It just, for some reason, I'm always drawn to it. And this is the honest truth. Is my LinkedIn presence was really growing, and I was getting tagged in a lot of LinkedIn posts, and I was tagged in paragraphs of names. And I thought, because I'm a little bit of a marketer, I was like, how can I make sure that name stands out from the rest? So I had never seen anyone do this before, but I put 2 tangerine emojis around my name. And I chose tangerines because I was looking at all the orange emojis and I thought, this one is, I like oranges. And I also don't see it as there's no positive or negative connotations with an orange. Like, it's just a very neutral thing.
Right.
So I put it on. And so then if you look at paragraphs of names, like, I'm always popping out. And then over the years, I've seen more and more people do emojis in their names. I'm not claiming to have started it, but I will say that it has like, every time I tell the story of why I do it, more and more people pop up with their emojis around their names, which has been pretty cool.
I might try that. Actually, I did do
See,
it for
I
a
know.
while. I did do it for a while with lemons when I was first rebranding a little bit. So I'm like, maybe that's not a bad idea. You know, you're right. You got to stand out. You know, you're going to stand out on who you are regardless. But in this age of social media, in this age of just the digital age, this global, village that we live in now, which is you can be anywhere in seconds, you do need to stand out. So That's smart. I love it. Love the tangerine tips idea. Madeline, this has been a joy. I really loved having you here, sharing more about how to give people the tools to just rock the job that they want, and let it be known that they're worth it. That's the big thing. So thank you so much. Is there anything you want to leave in closing with listeners of the podcast or watchers on YouTube?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it really... I think a lot of us will listen to this podcast and maybe say, but, the people Madeline's talking about, probably aren't as old as I am, or they don't have the lack of experience I have, or blah, blah, blah. Like, we constantly kind of make up these reasons of why we can't be a job shopper. And I am just here to tell your audience that I have seen everyone overcome all these different barriers in their life, and that you can do it too. You just need the right strategy. You have been fed terrible career advice for your entire life. Like, I just know this to be true. So just know that it's not your fault and you can make this happen.
That is great advice. Things have changed. And it's good to have breathing new life into how this works now. So thank you for being a breath of fresh air and breathing new life into this philosophy of being the job shopper and really owning it. I really appreciate it. And I'm sure the audience will as well. Thanks so much. If you or someone you know is looking to make that career change or looking for the new job, I highly recommend you taking advantage of Madeline's free resume revamp webinar. It's a great place to start. Plus, the link to her LinkedIn tips, I put all of those in the listen notes. So definitely grab it while you can. And if you're feeling the overwhelm, I totally get it. So here's what you need to do. You need to join me on January 18th for the free New York Public Library event, where I'll be sharing tips on how to build confidence, stay calm, and kick that inner bully to the curb once and for all, plus a free self-havening experience that will add rocket fuel to your new year just when you need it. All you have to do is click the link in the listen notes to register now. And I'm going to add one more freebie for you. If you want even more momentum, Join me for my 14-day Hug It Out challenge. It is entirely free to turn those resolutions into revelations and make them a reality. Align with what you want in your life. Make it happen today. The time is now. Over 80% of people give up on those goals by February 1st. You are not one of them. That is where I come in, and that is why you're going to join me. Register now to stay on track during my challenge. During that time, you're going to get daily videos, a downloadable guide to follow along with each day of the 14 days, and endless support to make you a rock star when it comes to turning your thoughts into actions. So I plan to see you there. Hilistically Speaking is edited by 2 Market Media with music by Lipbone Redding and recorded on Squadcast. And here's another thing. If you are looking to start a podcast this year, if that's one of your goals, maybe you're just thinking about giving it a whirl, I've added a link for a free trial for 7 days for you to give it a shot. Squadcast is where I record. It's a remote recording platform. Give it a try. See how it works for you. You have thousands of thoughts in your mind every day. So I'm going to say this. Choose good ones, okay? And, of course, be kind to your mind. I'll see you in a few.
I know the girl with mountains